Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today, we're breaking down the Giants' all-22 offense against the Carolina Panthers. Now, one day removed from what, at least on broadcast, was what I would refer to as the worst performance in Daniel Jones's career. Individually speaking, I actually think it was actually even worse on tape. There was just a broken process for him in the pocket. I mean, as far as bailing pockets for this quarterback, it was the worst we've ever seen in this game. Though there were games last year that were similar. Begs the question, Nick, I think a lot of times last year we talked to the listeners and we tried to break down how, look, the pressure was bad for this quarterback last year. The O-line was bad. But what we were trying to do was parse out the plays where he did have the pocket and he just chose to bail from them anyway, or didn't, process the space in the field. And that was alarming to us. It clearly wasn't alarming to Joe Schoen and Brian Dable because they went forward with this quarterback for this year with limited competition. But those issues are starting to crop up again, and this time in clean pockets. And last year, there just weren't that many of the clean pockets, but we still saw that issue. This year, we're seeing more clean pockets and more of that issue. So that stood out to me on tape, but there were positives on this tape too. So I think we can go over those in this game. And a lot of players that may be a part of their future, Tyrone Tracy, Evan Neal, maybe, Jalin Hyatt, maybe, things we saw from them. And one more observation that I had from watching the tape, I think this might have been, well, I'll say it like this. This was the best overall performance I saw from a Giants offensive line without Andrew Thomas since Andrew Thomas joined the New York Giants. And I feel very strongly about that on the tape. And I want to hear your thoughts on kind of all of those things.
Yeah, as for the best performance by the offensive line, it's in the conversation.
Without Thomas,
of course. It's in the conversation. We'll go over Evan Neal in a little bit. I have all of his plays or most of his impactful plays cut up, and I'll run that as we do it. But before we get to Evan Neal, the offensive line in general was impressive, run blocking and pass blocking. John Michael Schmitz, we brought him up last week. I felt like he built on that performance from last week. So if we are looking for positives, there are positives away from this game tape. Tyrone Tracy Jr., Evan Neal, as you said. I thought John Michael Schmitz, again, was the fulcrum of the offensive line when they were running that inside zone. Some of the duo plays as well. It seemed like there were a lot of just singled up base blocks because Carolina runs so many tight fronts. They run so many odd fronts, 3-4 type of defense. We talked, well, at least we didn't do this on the pregame show. We didn't really have a pregame show. But if you read my work over at Big Blue View, I talked a lot about how Wan'Dale Robinson could have had a huge game because Carolina did not want to play nickel. Carolina does not have the defensive backs to go into their sub package. So they want to roll out there with 3 defensive linemen, A'Shawn Robinson being one of those defensive ends. And they did that frequently. So how did the Giants respond? They ran a lot of counter run. They ran GH, they ran GT counter, some out of shotgun. They built in a quarterback rush zone read element off of that, some creative aspects of the Giants rushing attack they tried to get going. But what impressed me the most was how the Giants were able to just run the football up the middle. And a lot of that was because I felt like Greg Van Roten, John Runyon, and John Michael Schmitz were able to dominate the line of scrimmage and get up to those linebackers. And I'll say this, though, too. People are going to be like, oh, yeah, the Carolina Panthers, they suck defensively. You're right. You're not wrong. We're looking for positives here. I'm not saying it's the grandest positive ever, but it's still a positive. A player like Josie Jewell, for instance, it's pretty damn good. He's a pretty damn good player after watching this tape. I thought J.C. Horn, another very good player for that defense. So, hey, man, if we're looking for positives, they were able to run the football, but still, they weren't able to get the freaking win. And that's another reason why this is so freaking frustrating, Dan. But yeah,
it's frustrating. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No. I was just gonna finish what I was saying and say I agree with your overall assessment about the offensive line and how the offensive line still put the quarterback into a position to deliver the football to these receivers who were open on a lot of these plays, but still that failed connection. It's just the story of the New York Giants over the last half decade.
Well, that's the other thing, and we'll get into that in a second, but I do want to say I understand your overall frustration, and I feel it the same way because we're in it week in, week out, and we still have so many weeks to go, and the season is at where it's at. That's part of our level of frustration. It's why, we have the moments we have, like last night's podcast. But I actually come away from this, Nick, thinking a lot more positively, weirdly enough. And I think that way because I look at a game like this. And so you brought up how really dominant they were in a lot of ways in the run game. And then you look at it overall, since Tyrone Tracy was named the starting running back, Nick, over the last 5 weeks, the Giants are the second best team in EPA in the run game, courtesy of Justin Pennick. Shout out to him for the stat. wow, they're the second best rushing offense. And that's with a quarterback who doesn't threaten defenses vertically. That's with a quarterback who defenses can scheme to stop the run against because, again, he doesn't challenge defenses in any facet. So you look at the run blocking and the improvements they've made up front. I thought Greg Van Roten I really thought every offensive lineman played a good game in the run game, to be completely honest. Then you across the board. So now you're talking about the run offense being the second best over the last 5 weeks. The pass blocking in this game, with the exception of that 3rd and 5 sack that Jones took, and I think you know the one I'm referring to, where no one was open and the pass protection broke down. I didn't really see many miscues from the pass protection in this entire game, if any. Maybe a missed block here or there after a little while, 2-3 seconds. But for the most part, some squeaky clean pockets at times, like unbelievable pockets at times. Some that I put up on Twitter where, you just see the quarterback just sitting there, and then bailing right, standing, bailing right. Some of the most broken processing I've ever seen from Jones, really unplayable. In this game, we're not going to harp on it, but he was unplayably bad. He should have been benched at halftime. It would have been the right thing to do for these teammates to bench him at halftime, given how bad he played individually in that first half. He played a little better in the second half, Jones. I want to make that clear. Not much better, but a little bit better for sure. You couldn't have possibly played as bad as he played in that first half, but good pockets provided. Evan Neal wasn't perfect. We're about to go over that in depth, so I don't want to get too much into that. I don't think Illuminor was perfect at times at left tackle, but that interior man has been really doing a good job in pass protection for Daniel Jones. So now you look at it like this, Nick. Run blocking and run game has really improved. The pass protection has settled in without Andrew Thomas. The receivers, they get open. The scheme gets them open. Like we've seen a lot of games, dude, where a quarterback has that kind of pocket with the Giants, specifically the Garrett years. Pocket, he's standing there, but nobody's open. There was open space on a lot of these plays that Jones just for whatever reason can't process and can't get the ball out to. That's another story. He's broken, but like the space is there with the receivers. So now you got receivers getting open, a playmaker in Neighbors who's completely underutilized from a yak standpoint and just is what it is. And on the vertical plane, that's something for the future, though. We know what he is from his tape at LSU and from his early season. Now they've kind of morphed him into this possession receiver. It's all they can get out of him. And then Theo Johnson, who's developing. All 4 of those factors in play, dude. Like I come away from this tape actually kind of enthused about the future of this offense. To me, it really does come down to one major issue. And I really stand by that. And I think this tape substantiates it.
Yeah. And that one major issue is obviously the quarterback position.
Correct.
I don't know how well this offensive line holds up against better competition if they're going to play as well, but still it's a step in the right direction. And as for
one thing on that before you get into it, the offensive line will get Andrew Thomas back for next year. So that's going to make a big improvement as well.
A huge improvement. And I don't know if Greg Van Roten will be here. And I did think Greg Van Roten had a great game, especially playing
back. He's good.
We'll get into Evan Neal, but Greg Van Roten had to have just having Evan Neal next to him was a burden for him. And that's not a slight on Evan Neal per se, but the Giants, they weren't always allocating a tight end towards Evan Neal's side. That wasn't something that they did as we've seen previously. There were a lot of times where Evan Neal was towards the double Y set. So on those plays, yes, but there were also times where the Giants would like half slide. Greg Van Roten would have the responsibility of being to the inside of Evan Neal, even if he had a 3-tech over top of him. You saw that if there was no one covering the center would be to the inside. Greg Van Roten would set a little bit further to protect the inside for Evan Neal. And there were also plays where Greg Van Roten, he passed off his 3-tech or his 2-tech towards John Michael Schmitz. And then he just darted his eyes at Evan Neal, saw Evan Neal was getting beat high side, and then went deep into the pocket to just throw Jadeveon Clowney out of the pocket to allow Daniel Jones to step up. So little aspects of the game like that from Greg Van Roten can go a long way. It's a veteran type of thing. It's not necessarily perceivable statistically, but it did come up on tape. And that wasn't to say that Evan Neal was just bad and he needed that, but just having that insurance policy next to Evan Neal is something that I appreciate, watching him out there to alleviate that burden on Evan Neal just being out there right now, because that's overwhelming when you think about it. All of the negative talk about this guy, and now he's forced to start. At least he had that veteran presence of Greg Van Roten to bail him out if he needed bailing.
Look, we all wear underwear every single day, and we all have complaints. They ride up, they're not comfortable, they don't fit correctly. I shared these complaints until I started wearing Skims. When I tried Skims stretch boxer briefs, I felt like I finally found that missing link. They gave me all the movement I needed for the workout. They were comfortable while I was sitting here podcasting and watching all of this New York Giants film. Everything from the texture to the fit worked for me, and it will work for you too. It is a great product, and I highly recommend it. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show, Big Blue Banter, in the drop-down menu that follows.
Let me ask you this before we move on. Given what we've seen from Van Roten this year, some really high flashes in the run game, in addition to kind of that high IQ stuff, and given just the struggles the Giants have had on the offensive line over the last 10 years and just issues with depth and injuries hurting them and just how hard it is to develop players and, a rookie may not be as good as we think he may be. I don't really see any reason why he shouldn't be a priority re-sign this offseason. Like, he's somebody I want to bring back immediately on this, even if it's as a depth piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this, and he's incentivized to come back. He's from Long Island.
Right.
He has a young family. He said that he wants to be around his family. So he's incentivized to stay on the East Coast. And I'd be fully in support of that if the Giants want to give him a little vet min deal or something, maybe a little bit more than that to come in and not even be guaranteed a starting spot. They'll compete, because I want the Giants to still upgrade this offensive line. At one point, on Malik Neighbors I wanted to get to, I still think the Giants could do a better job designing plays and getting him the football.
Yes.
Specifically on the inside, and specifically against the Carolina Panthers, where they had J.C. Horn. And J.C. Horn, look, he doesn't necessarily align much in the slot, but he will go into the box sometimes. He's a very good player. You could have exploited the fact that Carolina is terrible in the secondary by moving Malik Neighbors around enough. And they did that whenever they went into empty. They would put Malik Neighbors inside as the number 3, and they would get him the football in like a quick hitch, and it would go for like 5-6 yards. I think you could have just done a little bit more of that to feature this guy.
I think that's a great call by you. And I think about it from watching this game. The reason I know it's true is because I liked, and I'm sure you saw this as well, I liked a lot of the route combinations the Giants had to try to beat the secondary. There were a lot of vertically oriented route combos, and Wan'Dale Robinson's role was a little bit different than we've seen in a good way, right? He was used more on some of the intermediate and vertical routes, and he was, in a lot of times, he ran a good route, just didn't get the ball. That's something you can do by just moving Neighbors into the slot. Now, I do think it might require a quarterback change. I don't know if they have the quarterbacks on the roster to do it, because if you're going to be able to attack any secondary vertically, this was the one to do it. And there were just so many plays that I saw on tape, the 1st and 10 in the start of the second quarter, among many others I put on Twitter. Some I just held back from putting because of DJ fatigue. I don't want everybody getting worn out by it. But like, there were plays where like he had a great pocket, was just staring there, and there was open space at all these route on the second and third level. And I guess he just didn't see it, or he's just not reading it well, and just panics in these pockets and bails them. But like, good job on the Giants, get these guys open. And some of those were Wan'Dale out of the slot in the intermediate vertical level. Imagine if that's Neighbors running that route. That's kind of what you're getting at, I think, or at least that's how I perceived it. And I like that idea.
Especially against a team that wants to only use 4 defensive backs. If 2 of those defensive backs are more than likely going to be outside the numbers, handling Jalin Hyatt or Wan'Dale Robinson, if you want to put him out there, Isaiah Hodgins, whatever. If you move Malik Neighbors to the inside and J.C. Horn doesn't follow him, you're dictating to the defense. Now, that defense may adjust and be like, all right, safety over the top. We're going to have the apex defender, whether it be a linebacker or the overhead, whoever it is, we're going to have him have inside shade, and we're going to bracket Malik Neighbors. Well, now you have one-on-one matchups all around the field that Daniel Jones can pick and choose from. So you can at least leverage the lack or the dearth of talent in the secondary of the Carolina Panthers against him by moving Malik Neighbors inward. And I just don't feel like they did that enough. I don't have the percentage in front of me, but it didn't seem like Malik Neighbors was in the slot all too often.
I don't have the percentage in front of me, but I don't really remember many, if any, snaps where he was in the slot. I've seen him motioned in a few times.
From empty, they usually always put him in the slot to create that mismatch. I just think you should start doing that, not when it's just empty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, throw Hyatt on the outside if you don't trust Wan'Dale in that role. That's fine. We can take Wan'Dale out for a few snaps.
15.4% slot rate. I just think that should get bumped up.
It's a mistake. Yeah, it's something on their end that they can improve. I mean, if you look at, especially in this game where you're right, the Panthers don't have a lot of defensive backs on the field. They don't play well. They don't have a lot of talent in the secondary. They've been one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. I think they allow 400 yards per game as a total defense. The Giants should have had like 300 yards passing in this game, given the pockets that were provided and the space that these receivers had. So I think Neighbors could have helped that. Maybe that would have just been something easier for Jones, I guess.
Yes. Now, do you want to get into Evan Neal, or do we want to talk about Tyrone Tracy Jr. in this rushing attack? They kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
They do go hand in hand a little bit, especially because Neal's best reps came in the run game, I think, for sure. Let's start with Evan Neal because he's a potential big piece potentially, and you can run the clips. I'll give you my take, and then I'll let you dive into the more in-depth analysis that you're adept and great at doing, Nick. From my vantage point, watching Evan Neal, and I loved your cut up you did and you put on Twitter. For those who haven't seen it, you can watch every snap that Nick's playing right now. I guess you're watching it right now, but if you're listening, you can
It's a
find
different
it.
one. I made multiple cut ups.
Oh, there we go. It's a multiple cut up kind of day. So you can see it either here or on Twitter. But from my vantage point, I felt like here was the deal with Neal. I love him in the run game compared to what we've been getting at that right tackle position. That's not a knock on Illuminor. It's just a mere Evan Neal on down block specifically. That's where I like him the most. Is a big guy who can move bodies. And he looked a little let. Now there was still one rep I saw, or at least one rep I saw in the run game where he lost his balance and fell to the ground. He still has some balance issues there, but the balance issues pop up a lot less in the run game. In the pass game, I felt like he was quick to try to get up the arc because of, I guess, what's kind of bothered him his whole career. Like you said, he had some help. I still think there are balance issues in the pass game. I still think he loses high side and will probably continue to lose high side. I don't know if that will be a liability, but remember, this was not an easy matchup for him. You talked a lot, and we talked a lot about how easy this Panthers defense matchup was. The one probably difficult spot on the entire defense was the one that Evan Neal had to match up against. Jadeveon Clowney, you're watching it right here, number 7. He's still a very, very good player in the NFL. So I thought all things considered, this was a step forward for Evan Neal. To me, Nick, my main takeaway is after watching this tape, you have to start him the rest of the season. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
100%. Now with Evan Neal, look, when we grade Evan Neal, we have to stop thinking of Evan Neal as the former top 10 overall
Okay.
pick. He hasn't played to that. This is at least how I'm doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm viewing Evan Neal like, is this a usable asset that we can confidently start? I think he had a good outing here. Now, still, he's lumbering. He's not the quickest out of his stance all the time. Not necessarily in pass sets, but when he is pulling, when the Giants were running counter, he was the puller. Now, he brings force at the point of contact when he does make contact, but it's still slow. I still feel he's a slow-footed overall athlete out there. So keep all of that in mind. When he is run blocking at the point of attack in this game, he found ways to eliminate his assignment. He found ways to allow Tyrone Tracy Jr. to find a crease. And you're going to see that all throughout that, whether that's washing a 3-tech down the line of scrimmage or getting up to a linebacker and just tossing him to the play side, allowing Tyrone Tracy Jr. to cut back. Because that's how this rushing attack has really operated. There is a lot of cutbacks from Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Devin Singletary. And sometimes they're on their weak side runs. So that means the cutback, the backside has 2 blockers like we saw on that 32-yard touchdown scamper. We'll go over in a little bit. But that was you're actually, no, this isn't it. But you see the Giants will run weak side, and then the cutback lane has 2 tight ends over there. So if the defense over pursues to the play side, then you're going to have extra blockers on the backside. So you're taking advantage of an over-aggressive defense. The Giants did that successfully against the Carolina Panthers. Now let me run this one more time so everyone can watch. We'll go back to the pass set. As for Evan Neal, when it comes to run blocking, I'm impressed. I'm okay with it. I still think he's big and he gets too high and his pad level's an issue. But I think all's well and good right there, and it's very passable. It was a step in the right direction. Pass protection, I still think it's a step in the right direction because to me, he seemed more confident where he needed to be and more patient with his hands and patient overall. He was more square to his target. Was he beat high side a few times? Yes, he was. Was he beat to the inside a few times? Yes, he was. But to me, it's more about, is he going to go out there and seem confident with where he is going to be placed? Can he frame his blocks? How confident is he taking different sets? We saw him jump set. We saw a lot of vertical sets and 45-degree sets here. And then how does he engage with his hands? And you can see even on some of these plays, his hands are coiled up and they're ready to go. And there were a couple plays where he threw his left hand or his right hand out just to get Jadeveon Clowney to commit to a move. And then once Clowney committed to a move, it was all a farce. And Evan Neal hit him with some sort of double move and then trapped him on one play as well, which you might be seeing here soon. So overall, I think he varied his punch timing. I think he varied his approach as a pass blocker enough for me to be very encouraged. It was certainly a step in the right direction, but let's not act like he's Andrew Thomas.
No, we're not getting Andrew Thomas out of this prospect. I think we know that for sure. But there was also the other side of the spectrum, Nick, which is a lot of fans were, this is unplayable. You can't even consider putting him back on the field. He's done. He's a bust. And I didn't feel like that was the case watching him in this game. And I'm really excited about that because, look, maybe he's not the long-term right tackle, but if he can get to a level close to what Illuminor was giving them earlier this season, that's kind of the ceiling I'm looking for now. And again, it's a ceiling. It's not a middle ground. It's what I think can be the best case for him in addition to what he offers in the run game. I'm just speaking as a pass blocker.
Yeah.
And that's a passable skill set. Like that's somebody you can start. That's somebody you can rely on. He's not there yet. He needs to prove it against for 5 more games, right? But that's something that's now on my mind that wasn't necessarily before this game.
And again, man, he seemed like he developed some tendency breakers where it wasn't like the Carolina Panthers were getting a beat on his exact set every time. Sometimes he was going to be aggressive and jump right on Jadeveon Clowney. Other times he was going to wait for Jadeveon Clowney to dictate to him. And I loved how he was positioned in a lot of his pass sets. Still beat on a few, and you can see I put like 4 or 5 of his negative reps together right before the run blocking reps. A lot of them were him getting swum inside or just losing high side, but wasn't nearly as bad as what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I still think I would like the Giants this offseason personally, Nick, to cross-train him at both guard and tackle. To me, I still think he might be a better guard than tackle at the NFL level. I think about what the Eagles and Jeff Stoutland's been able to do with Mekhi Becton over there. Now, that's Jeff Stoutland. We don't have Jeff Stoutland, but I think so far, Carmen Brasil has been pretty damn good as an offensive line coach, at least from our vantage point, what we can know with these guys. And the work that Stoutland did with Becton is intriguing to me because Becton had similar issues, not the exact same, but similar issues to Neal as an island pass protector. And I wonder if moving him inside can help Evan Neal long-term and can be better for the Giants long-term. I don't know if that's in their plan this offseason. They may feel like, look, we didn't have enough time this offseason to cross-train him. He was injured. We finally got him back at the end, and we were like, let's just have him work on one position. That's kind of what they told us too, right? And that's the position he has been working on his entire career with the Giants, right tackle. So maybe that was just the plan for this year. Maybe next year it changes going into this offseason. You have Andrew Thomas coming back, Illuminor coming back, so you have 2 options already at tackle. Because I ultimately feel like he should be on the field if he can continue to progress like he did in this game.
I agree, man. Yeah, one other thing too before we get into some plays. Damn, man, A'Shawn Robinson. I don't remember him being that good. Holy crap.
No, he was pissed. This was a game of like, look, you guys needed me. I did a lot for your defense last year that went unnoticed by the box score and by people who don't watch the tape. And I am going to show you that in this game. And that's what he did. And they could have used A'Shawn Robinson this year. Let's be honest. They didn't have the cap space for A'Shawn Robinson. Remember, they have $40 million allocated to this quarterback. So it's hard to allocate cap space to everybody. So they couldn't bring him back among other players that they had to let go. And they've suffered for it. A'Shawn Robinson would make this defense a lot better this year. I think we both agree with that, Nick. A lot better.
Dude, he would be a top 3 player on the defense right now, playing next to Dexter Lawrence. Right. So, and that's such a, indictment on our defense as we brought up all season. It's like whenever 97, even when 97's out there, sometimes the run defense suffers because you could just put 4 hands on Dexter Lawrence and be like, hey, DJ Davidson. And then DJ Davidson could just run into the guard in front of him and then watch the running back run right past him as he continues upfield. Man, I'm just getting sick and tired of seeing bad defensive football out here.
Well,
man.
yeah,
There's a lot of it.
There was a lot of it. We'll get to that on the defensive podcast. We may have a different take on the defense, I think, just based on that. And I'm not saying it was good, but just they went 45 straight minutes without allowing more than a touchdown. So, I mean, that's
I know. Well, no, Dan, you're misreading entirely what I'm saying. I'm saying going out there and seeing these backups to Dexter Lawrence is horrendous.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Every time you see one of them out there and there's no Dexter Lawrence, it's terrible.
And the run defense has been terrible. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Like the run defense is arguably the worst we've seen in a long time. Though, even with it as bad as it was, they still allowed 17 points, which kind of shows you the limitations of what a bad run defense can do.
Well, again, you got to grade that on a curve, though. They're playing Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers.
It's been a pretty good run game, though, this year with Chuba Hubbard, to be honest.
They have, but just overall, like 17 points. If they had like a quarterback who could actually threaten the Giants, and the Giants are shit on the secondary right now. I think it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, great point. And this defense has its issues for sure, as we'll see moving forward. And I think you're right. Like that's part of it goes into a larger discussion of why I am going to be very nervous and skeptical with whoever they go to next at quarterback when it comes to that second contract. Because when you give that second contract, you end up losing players like A'Shawn Robinson. You end up losing all these pieces that help you become a better team because you're allocating 18% of your cap to one player. And that one player, if you're going to allocate 18% of your cap to, has to be a difference maker. There's no way to win without that, essentially, in the NFL. If he's average, you might be able to win if you're really good at drafting. If he's above average, you have a shot to win. If he's anything below that or at, even average, taking up 18% of the cap, it's tough. I think we're seeing that this year. This roster doesn't have depth, and we have missing pieces all over the defense. But
absolutely, man, it's tough. But again, we saw another varied rushing attack, and I felt like the Giants were able to take advantage of the formation from the Carolina Panthers with a lot of those weak side runs with the double Y set, because the way the linebackers were aligning, they were shading so close to the strong side, to the close side where both those tight ends were, that Tyrone Tracy Jr. was able to force that overcommit, create that cutback. So you have to really, when you do that with your rushing attack, you're dictating to the defense, like, you better be disciplined with your gap integrity, because if you over pursue, we're going to take advantage of it. And the backside blockers of the New York Giants did a phenomenal job at this game. Evan Neal being one of them, those tight ends being some of them, and John Runyon, all of them. They when you're on the backside, like, just because you're not on the front side of a blocking play does not mean your block is not important. And if you execute your block well, you with a back like Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Devin Singletary, they could be coming right. Or what I was about to say there. Holy crap! What I was about to say there was going to be crazy, but they would be going right behind your backside. All right. So yeah.
Right up your ass is what you were going to say.
No, well, I did not say going behind. I used the word coming, and then we're just going to leave it there.
Your mind always goes to these places that mine just never goes to, and it's just quick for you. It happens in your head.
Who's a well-adjusted functioning human being now, me or you?
It's still you, despite your potty mouth. I think it's from watching so much South Park. But it is what it is.
I do like South Park.
You do love South Park.
It's a great show.
But great show. All right. Let's get in some play breakdowns.
All right. Let's do it, Dan. Let's go through it and have a good time. And we're going to start right here with the New York Giants, 3rd and 8. We all know this play. Malik Neighbors does a sensational job creating separation on this play. I love this route so much, and Daniel Jones just airmails it.
Great route.
It's just a phenomenal route, dude. Because, like, look, the ball is on the far hash. You have Malik Neighbors outside the numbers, plus splits by about 3 yards. And then you have the defensive back. I think his name is Mike Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. He is slightly to the inside towards the top of the numbers with his hips angled inward. So what Malik Neighbors is going to do is he's going to, once the cornerback becomes square to him, he's going to get him to reset at the bottom of the numbers. You see that? How he forces his defensive back to reset. Then Malik Neighbors explodes to the bottom of the numbers, puts his foot in the ground, and starts going vertical and to the outside. And that forces Jackson to open his hips and stride out. And then he just cuts it right back to the sideline. You just created, Malik Neighbors, so much space in a one-on-one situation with your route and with your angles and how you stemmed off the line of scrimmage inward, got into the feet, ate into the cushion, and then forced him to bail out. And now look, Neighbors has all the space in the world outside the numbers with his defensive back whose hips are currently facing like the back pylon.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Jones just sailed it over his head, man. And this is, it sucks so bad when great routes like this just go unnoticed. So good job, Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then, I mean, look, we don't need to harp on it too much, but it does need to be said because we're analyzing a play. This is basic level quarterbacking here. You can't blame it on the pocket because it's a perfect pocket. He's able to hitch into the throw. And missing throws like this, these are what Kurt Warner was discussing yesterday, right, Nick? Kurt Warner said, what I see with Daniel Jones is now he's missing even the layup throws. We already know he doesn't go above the rim. He doesn't make anything but layup throws anyway. So now if he's also missing layup throws like this one, it becomes unplayable, becomes bench worthy. And this is what we mean when we say it, because in this regard, Nick, he takes 3 points off the board. If he makes this easy layup throw, they have 1st and 10. They're in field goal range already. Maybe they score a touchdown. Who knows? But it's a minimum of 3 points he takes off the board. This is a game that goes to overtime. Those 3 points decide the game. So when you, and this isn't the only points that he took off the board. Obviously, he had 2 turnovers in the red zone. He missed the flea flicker play. So when you're actively taking points off the board, you are becoming the reason they lose. Like everyone can point to all these other little things that are happening in a game, but when you're doing this, you are taking points off the board. You are the reason they are losing a game. And it's just, and if it's not a layup throw, fine. I don't need to blame you for losing the game, but it's a layup. And as Kurt Warner said, he just misses the layups now.
And it's about like 2 or 3 hitches into this throw. And then he puts too much mustard on it too. He overthrows it after having like 3 hitches into it. And it's just like, oh, geez, man, on the first drive, you knew it was going to be a bad day when that was your first 3rd and 8.
And he did settle in the second half a little bit. I want to make that clear because he always has these like frantic, it's off. Like now the whole first half is a disaster, but like he took the break, I guess. He took the breath at halftime and like was able to play better. Still not good at all, dude. Like you should be able to light up this secondary with the space that they allowed for these receivers. But again, it is what it is. This is a bench-worthy performance.
And then here's a third and 8 later in the first quarter, 5:52 left. The Giants forced to punt once again.
Yeah.
You have the number 1 receiver. He is going to run an out route with the number 2 running a corner. This is a simple concept we run all the time in Madden. You have the space. Daniel Jones is just a tick too late here, and that's the issue.
Well, it's a tick too late. It's also, I feel like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think the only chance you have is if you throw this ball outside and lead him toward the sideline, but he throws it back toward the inside. So it's really horrific ball placement that also leads to this.
Of course. So look, you have, right, like the ball should be already coming out at this moment. And Daniel Jones is still burping the baby. If you're watching on YouTube, Daniel Jones is back in the pocket. He's already hit his back foot. His eyes are on Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson has enough space to make this if the ball is coming out right now. But instead, Jones is just a little bit late. Wan'Dale Robinson is already into his break when Daniel Jones is rearing back.
Right.
And number 2 is already breaking through the catch point. And the football is put into a spot where it's a little bit to the inside. So
to me, it's a lot to the inside.
Play, though,
I know you know that. I'm not saying like you're saying the opposite. I'm just saying, to me, to have any chance of even turning this into a first down, it has to be like led really far toward the sideline. There was a throw Bryce Young made later in the game on a key have it down where he did exactly that. He threw with anticipation and led it far toward the sideline. So to me, even if this was outside shoulder, it's still not the right ball placement. I think you got to really lead him toward that sideline.
My one contention with that, while I do agree with you, is I don't know if Jones process that 2 was he's in a good spot right now. He completed, but it needs to be quicker than this. And Jones was late with the football, and Jones didn't want to put it outside in fear that Jackson would just run right through Wan'Dale Robinson's little alligator arms and take it to the house, because he puts it to the inside shoulder away from Jackson here. So that makes me think, now, is Daniel Jones that accurate? Is he thinking that much? He could be on a given play, right? Like, let's be fair. He could be on a given play, but it's probably your assumption.
Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents.
It's a fair assumption, though. You never know. It's one of the two things. I just think either way, and I know you agree, throwing it on your that late and throwing it on your inside shoulder. But part of the reason why it's so late is because his delivery is so slow.
It is. And now I want to go back to that play too, man. Sorry for those who are listening on the podcast. But if you are watching right here, you know this route concept. You see the space. This could be a choice route. The choice is obviously going to be an out. I think it was going to be an out either way. It's a delayed release by Wan'Dale, but it's just a tick too slow. We're talking about milliseconds. Milliseconds make a difference in the NFL.
Right. It's what we've been trying to say for a while. It's why we put so much onus on the quarterback position and its importance in wins and losses.
Absolutely. Start of the second quarter, 14:02, 1st and 10. We get a double dig here versus cover 3 match. Jones delivers a nice football to Jalin Hyatt in stride. You always talk about the dig route, and this is a good pass, and Hyatt's able to make this catch.
That's his route, baby. Jones throws a good dig route. I will always give him credit for that. I think it's the one thing he does well on the field. He throws a good dig route, and obviously he's tough and all that nonsense. But
so you got a 3-by-1 nub, and they motion 2-by-2, and that safety shifts towards Malik Neighbors. He drops down, as you could see. And then you have the bailing other safety from the other side, which creates that space. Once Wan'Dale Robinson bends this, it's not really a dig, it's more of a cross. And you see Jalin Hyatt does a really good job getting this cornerback all turned. Also, I would say that's the cornerback. I don't know who number 2 is. It's not JC Horn. That might be Jackson, actually. Does a poor job flipping his hips. You can see how Hyatt gets into his blind spot and then works. So good overall play by the New York Giants. I think this ended up
a nice job by Hyatt to rise up, make the catch it away from his body. Don't let it come into his body. Things that we saw on tape. What'd you say?
He almost drops it right here, too.
He comes down with it. And these are things that we saw on his tape last year when he actually got some reps, Hyatt. He was able to extend away from his frame and catch the ball. I still have hope for Hyatt as a prospect on this team. I don't expect it to look this way until we, upgrade a quarterback, but I do have hope.
We probably should have acknowledged that too a little bit more at the top of the show. He did look good as well.
Good in this
that's
game,
that's another step in the right direction for the Giants. I don't know which direction that is, but hopefully it's the right one. Now, I also want to look at Evan Neal on this play. Theo Johnson helps him out, right? Theo Johnson sets to the outside, just gives him a nice inside hand shove towards Evan Neal. And I love how Evan Neal attacks Jadeveon Clowney. He accepts Theo Johnson's gift, right? He's like, thank you, Theo. And then he grabs Clowney by the collar and just pulls him to the deck and traps him. Almost like a snap and trap type of play, but this is more just raw power. It wasn't necessarily a timing thing. You could see Jadeveon Clowney, once he's contacted by Evan Neal, he stood straight up because of Theo Johnson, who again had another good game. If we're going to be real right here, Theo Johnson looked good in this game. and he bailed the Giants offense out when the Giants offense did not deserve any bailing. And
Yes,
I love that
multiple
play
times.
by Evan Neal to just understand that he has the advantage. Now just take the advantage, and he did.
I like that.
And now here's the flea flicker debacle. Oh God, it's tough to watch, man. It's tough to watch. Wandale
Really
is so pissed. Dable is so pissed, bro.
Yeah, I was going to say from this angle, Dable's so pissed, but I actually paused it at one point to look at the entire sideline because it's not just Dable who's pissed. You
Yeah.
could see the entire sideline is so deflated by this play, and it looks just so much worse from the end zone angle. I mean, it's a flea flicker. You don't need to take these gather steps that the quarterback takes on this one. It's just an unbelievable thing to me to watch him take 2 gather steps to get himself. Even then, after he takes his gather steps, he tries to release the ball and then clutches it and takes the sack. Like, let it loose, my man. Let it loose. You already wasted 2 to 3 steps gathering yourself for no apparent reason when all you need to do on a flea flicker is catch the ball. You watch every other quarterback catch it, take no gather steps, and just let it rip. They know they're going to get hit. So what? Quarterbacks get hit when they throw the ball. But my man doesn't even throw it at the end. He clutches it as if there's coverage there. He clutches it and takes the sack as if, look, if I throw it, it's going to get intercepted. No, if you throw it with anticipation into space, you're going to score a touchdown. The opposite is taking the sack and taking your team out of field goal range, my man.
Yes, it's a 3rd and 1 too. You got to remember that. And when you look at like the Giants, if they didn't take a sack here, they probably would have went for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They convert all of those 4th and 1s because they just quarterback sneak Jones and it works every time.
And if you look at the Panthers defense, how they react. Look, they all bite up, man. The ball is in Devin Singletary's stomach. Singletary passes it back. Jones catches it. Wandale Robinson is about 4 yards away from his assignment. There is a safety who is just bailing right now, understanding that he's going to have Malik Neighbors and Wandale Robinson to worry about. Wandale is running from the middle of the field all the way to the side. Like, he has nothing but space. There is no second level defender anywhere near him. And Jones, man, like, it's inexcusable. I'm guessing he looked at Neighbors and didn't like what 25. Well, I don't know, but
who knows
at this
what
point,
he's
man,
looking at this point? It's so broken. But my God, man. And like people, I took so much offense to the people who were blaming Dable for this play call. It's 3rd and 1. You just run it and you take the first down. Guys, we've been yelling at him. We've been criticizing that all year because this is not an offense that can just take the first down. When they take the first down, oftentimes they don't score after getting their first down. They need to matriculate. He makes the perfect call, as Nick says, because you could see the defenders coming up to stop the run, and he gets 2 receivers wide open. That is a perfect play call. It's not only not a bad play call, it's a perfect play call. And it needs to be executed. And that's why he's throwing his hands up. That's why when you see that long shot on the first sideline view, the entire sideline, it's not just Dable. You see an assistant next to Dable who's pissed. You see the players pissed and deflated. This is the type of shit that you can't have on a football team. You can't have players and people being deflated because you draw up a perfect play call. You get the defense to commit to the run, and then your quarterback single-handedly blows it.
And these are also plays that are scripted. Now, we've seen the Giants run this, but these plays are talked about all throughout the week. Hey, if we're ever in this situation about midfield, we'll go for it if we don't get it, but let's take a shot on 3rd and 1. And
so then why do you need to gather? Like, why do you need the 2-3 gather steps?
Well, he has slow eyes, man. We know that about Jones at this point.
At least you'd hope he could predetermine that Wandale or Neighbors would be open, right? Like,
especially Wandale,
predetermining shit. Like
the way the secondary reacted, or the second level defenders all reacted.
It's such a fucking mess.
Here we have a 3rd and 7 conversion, though, where
go.
Malik Neighbors attracts those underneath defenders that create space for Wandale Robinson because you have a 3-by-1 set. It's 11 personnel. Theo Johnson is the lone one receiver, the X to the backside. And you have Wandale Robinson, who's only about 2-3 yards outside of Malik Neighbors, who is in a reduced set. And Wandale Robinson expands outward towards about the bottom of the numbers. Malik Neighbors goes inward, and that attention on Malik Neighbors from those middle hook defenders drags them away from the space that Wandale Robinson just sits. And the presence of Jalin Hyatt also forced 23, the apex defender, the curl flat defender, to expand a little bit too far, allowing Robinson to find the space. Good little conversion right there for the Giants.
Yeah, I thought that was another great example of good route combination and good play call, good play design by Dable. Just a good example. As we watched this tape, Nick, I thought there was a lot of space. The receivers had a lot of space around them at all times.
And I love these one-on-one matchups that Evan Neal gets, right? And he has a blitz. So he trusts the protection here. And this is a little thing, but like, there's a nerdy thing that I like. He's not panicking. He has a linebacker going directly through the B gap. And he understands that Tyrone Tracy Jr. is there. This is a 6-man protection. It's simple. I'm just going to focus on my assignment, who is Jadeveon Clowney. There's no panic in Evan Neal. You can see Evan Neal trusts that Tyrone Tracy Jr. is going to pick up the most dangerous man. Tyrone Tracy Jr. does that. And then Evan Neal, watch him. He throws that hand out. I like how he throws his hand out. Again, it's nothing too crazy, but he throws that hand out, and that forces Jadeveon Clowney to dictate. And then Evan Neal back, and then Evan Neal gets that outside arm on the breastplate. And once Jadeveon Clowney tries to turn high side, Evan Neal breaks the wrist and forces Jadeveon Clowney close to him. This is a good rep.
That's a great rep from Neal. That's a great rep from Neal, man.
Neal is controlling the entire rep. Not only is he throwing a diversion out there, he's throwing that diversion. He's saying, all right, Jadeveon, you commit. Oh, you committed? Cool. You're going to try to win high side? No, I'm going to control your inside arm, and I'm going to bring your head and your core right into my chest, and I'm not going to allow you to win up the arc. Very good job by Evan Neal.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have a nice little zone rush that ends up going for 19 yards. The spin this is when I'm playing Madden and I'm high or something, and I just keep clicking whatever the button is. I just spin it for no reason.
Yeah, my mistake. I love this rep from the two guards on this play. I remember you broke it down, and then I put it out there. Just loved Van Roten and Runyon climbing to that second level and just displacing guys.
It's that, and it's also Evan Neal, man. Like, look, Evan Neal, he has a 5 technique over the top of him, but it's a double Y set. It's a play side, close side run, meaning it's to the strengths. He's running towards the double Y. The Giants, they ran to the weak side a lot in this game, as we said. Evan Neal makes contact. Now, Greg Van Roten helps him, but Evan Neal makes a contact, and watch him just drive. He's driving. He displaces this player. He displaces this 5 technique, and he has such quality control that he allows Greg Van Roten to climb up to the mic. Greg Van Roten makes contact with the mic, and here's the backside blocks that I was talking about earlier in the podcast. John Runyon gets up and he eliminates the backside pursuit defender, which results in an extra 10 yards. If the Giants block like this on the backside, and again, it's against Carolina, but if they can block like this in the backside, and one of the reasons why they can block so well on the backside is because the front side or the original blocker on the play is doing such a good job controlling that it allows these climbing linemen to locate in a prompt manner, in a quicker manner. And you can see that's exactly what happened with Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon. So absolutely love that.
That was really good block, I thought, by pretty much everyone on that line there.
Absolutely, man. They blocked well. Oh, gosh. Here is the header interception off Jadeveon Clowney to former Dallas Cowboys safety Xavier Woods. Play action, rollouts, a 1st and 10, man, late in the second quarter.
Oh, I hate how so many of our interceptions come on 1st and 10, dude. It's crazy how many of our red zone turnovers come in 1st and 10. I heard today from a listener, shout out. Damn, I'm forgetting already this is how bad my memory is these days. I apologize for not being able to shout out who this was, but the Giants, since the Washington and Cleveland games early in the season, weeks 2 and 3, are 3 of 20 in the red zone as far as converting for touchdowns. 3 of 20. Do you know how bad that is? That's insane level bad.
Yeah, and they have multiple turnovers too.
Yeah.
They turn the football over.
Turnover on downs. They've had multiple turnover on downs and turnovers.
You had 2 turnovers in the red zone in this game. You had one against the Cincinnati Bengals that we all remember too. It's not good. But on this play, look, you're trying to fake the run, and great job by Jadeveon Clowney staying put. He just read it the entire time. You had both those other Carolina Panthers second-level defenders stay put. The Giants tried to create a 3-level read for Daniel Jones rolling towards the sideline, something the Giants have tried to do several times. It's just played very well. 1st and 10 situation, Jones, eat it, throw it out of bounds, do something else. He thought he had enough time to squeak it through. Look, you can knock him for that. You don't have to. It's not like Theo Johnson had a lot of leverage anyways.
Yeah, it could have been picked even if he got it through, potentially.
It's a risky throw. Jones, we know he does that sometimes.
Well, it's a risky throw with also. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Nick? What was that?
He just tries to do too much sometimes and doesn't just eat the play, especially when it's played as well as Carolina played this one. And, last thing that Brian Dable expected was for an interception to happen on a 1st and 10 play action rollout, right? 3-level read, it's just
at the end of the half too. And the other thing is, you said it's a risky throw. It is a very risky throw with Clowney right in front of his face. It's also a risky throw that has no reward to it, right? Because even if you get this through, it's going to be stopped for a 1-yard gain or a 1-yard loss. So really, you got to eat that by just throwing it low at Theo Johnson's feet. That's what we see a lot of good quarterbacks do. It's not what we see this quarterback do.
No, I truly do feel bad for Daniel Jones, because at this moment, if you're watching on YouTube, where he just bangs it off the face of Jadeveon Clowney, he's like, oh my gosh, like it probably slowed down. If they make a movie about Daniel Jones, this is the moment where it was like, And that's when I realized I'm getting benched. Like it's one of those moments where it like stops. You probably wondering how I got into that position.
I don't know if it could even be that moment, Nick, because he didn't get benched, right? This
No,
was right
yeah,
before the half.
yeah.
It took another 3 points off the board, and he didn't get benched for it.
I know, but I think he's taking his last snap as a New York Giant quarterback, unless Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito get. I think so. He's not starting out of the bye week. You can't start him out of the bye week. It's going to be Drew Lock.
If you watch this tape and you look these players in the eyes and you say that he's still your starting quarterback, you're going to lose the locker room.
I don't think he's starting, bro. Like Brian Dable today,
he can't watch this tape with them.
He didn't say as much, but he was asked, and he's like, "Oh, we just got to evaluate the tape and do all that." And so many other times prior to this, he would say, "Nope, I don't know, starting quarterback." So I think, and it just makes sense.
Well, it makes sense with the bye week
too,
2 weeks
and
to prepare.
the injury guarantee, all that stuff, man.
Yeah, but in addition to, I just think you might lose the locker room after how bad this tape was individually.
Here's the Tyrone Tracy Jr. 32-yard touchdown run. Again, man, this is one of those backside cuts. Beautiful. This is a open side run on the backside of a double Y set. So a weak side run to the boundary. Tyrone Tracy Jr. gets it, and it's bottled up by Carolina, but Carolina gets over aggressive. And one of the things I love about these weak side runs, if you have one of these running backs who can cut back so swiftly, like Tyrone Tracy Jr. did on this play, you have those extra blockers there. But I'll still say this. If you're a Carolina Panthers fan, like if we were doing a Carolina Panthers podcast, we would be bashing Jadeveon Clowney on this play, because Jadeveon Clowney is that contained defender. And look, just not a lot of effort. He's just like kind of and then you can't do that against Tyrone Tracy Jr. His acceleration and his explosiveness, it's too much to account for.
He thought the play was dead, right? He thought there was nowhere to go, and Tracy has that cutback ability, that natural vision. It's so impressive, man. Like, you see some of these runs that we've watched for the last however many years watching the Giants. You can go back as far as you want, and these were turned into nothing. And Tracy sometimes turns these into legit touchdowns, which is crazy.
This is a touchdown run by Tyrone Tracy Jr. And if you look, man, great job by Evan Neal, because Josie Jewell tries to over pursue as well. And then Evan Neal makes him pay, creating that cutback. Chris Manhertz does a great job against 93, turning himself, creating that seal. And then you have Theo Johnson get up to 20 and just get just enough contact to allow Tyrone Tracy Jr. to outrun a lethargic Jadeveon Clowney and then all the other pursuit defenders.
One thing I also like, it's a small thing at the end of the run from Tracy there that I really like. I love how at the end of this run, when he feels the contact coming, he gets high and he starts to kind of slow down, almost in like an Alvin Kamara way. Alvin Kamara used to always talk about how when he feels contact, he would kind of go limp, because that helps him from a contact balance standpoint. You could see it at the end of this run. He goes high, and that allows him to, instead of getting tackled down early, kind of fall through into the end zone.
Yeah, and also, man, that just acceleration. Absolutely.
The acceleration is unbelievable. The lateral agility to make the cut, and then bang, that acceleration right there.
And the guy does it like every week. I don't think, this is one thing about Tyrone Tracy Jr. As Giant fans, we're not talking about him enough because the Giants suck so bad. And we're so focused on, and rightfully, we're so focused on how shitty this product is and how shitty the New York Giants are. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a day 3 pick who is putting the team on his back every week, who is creating explosive plays every single week. I don't know how many explosive runs he has, but I got to guess it's over 10, right? Of 20-yard runs for a rookie.
He's averaging like 5.6 yards per carry over the last 5 weeks, I believe. And the Giants are, let me make this clear again, because it's a very important stat, the second best team in EPA running the football. Second best in the NFL with no quarterback to threaten defenses. Do you know how hard that is to be?
It's not easy.
It's Tyrone Tracy. He's a real talent that they found. This is their best pick they're going to have of their regime, I think, no matter what at this point, from a pure value standpoint, to get that kind of talent in round 5. And I'm just excited to see him moving forward with the Giants.
Here's a 2nd and 9. Giants are backed up. This is the first play of the fourth quarter. Yeah, Jones just locks on to Wan'Dale Robinson and then tries to force it between the two middle hooks, tries to anticipate it, and it does not go well.
The pocket was so good too. From the end zone angle I saw it, the pocket was there, man. Like, there's so many better options here than just lock on Wan'Dale. As you can see, so many bodies in the middle of the field, but he's broken from a processing standpoint. It's a lock one read, despite having 3 seconds to sit in a pocket. I mean, I'd love to see him take a whole shot outside the numbers there to tie it, but he'll never do that. And the one time he did it, he got Slayton almost killed. So I don't even know if I want him taking that, because I don't want Hyatt getting injured because of a horrible throw again. But like, this is just not the right play here.
Yeah. So the Hyatt point, I don't think Jones is going in that direction, because if you look pre to post snap, Right at
Yeah,
the
this
snap,
is
Jones
big.
going to look at the safety. 20 rotates
Right.
aggressively over the top of Hyatt
Yep.
because you're going to have that trap towards the top of the screen. But then 20 ends up flipping his hips and then just
Right.
avoiding Jalin Hyatt. But at that point, Daniel Jones has already come off that as an option. So he's focusing primarily on Wan'Dale Robinson. But both those middle hook defenders are fully aware of that. And then
Yeah.
Theo Johnson is eliminated by good coverage from J.C. Horn at the top of the screen as well. And these are the things I'm talking about, right? Like, he's not going to throw to Hyatt there because the safety is bailing but there's never hey, the safety changed his course. Like there's never that full awareness of, and it's so much easier said than done, guys. And I'm fully aware of that. It's so much easier said than done. But you see other quarterbacks who are like, okay, I saw that safety flip his hips. Now I know I have Hyatt up the sideline for a touch. And it looks like a blown coverage by 20, but really it's just 20 trying to handle multiple responsibilities and the quarterback calling his bluff on it. And that's a lot of what football is. And that needs to happen so quick. You need to have a quarterback who is decisive and who has awareness and eyes that can process all this information. And unfortunately, we know that the Giants have not had that since Eli Manning.
No. And it's to a point where it's really gotten so broken where it's really just the worst you can, it's one of the worst you see on a weekly basis. Like even Bryce Young in this game, man, he wasn't very good. I wouldn't say he was very good, Nick, but he had some anticipatory throws in this game that just you never see from I shouldn't say never, again, sparingly see from Daniel Jones. And he was clearly the better quarterback on tape, despite facing a much better defense, right? His matchup was much harder. The Giants still have Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence on their defense.
Burns had a game too, man.
Yeah, and Burns had an amazing game. Carolina has nothing on their defense, and this quarterback couldn't take advantage of any of it.
I know, man. And look, dude, again, Giants doing a good job protecting Evan Neal when you're back on the goal line. Don't put Evan Neal in a position where he can fail and that confidence can be hurt. So Theo Johnson, again, good job, shoves Jadeveon Clowney right at Evan Neal. Then Evan Neal uses his power. That's one of his traits that he has that you can't take away from Evan Neal. He's very big and he's very strong. So he just shoves Jadeveon Clowney basically to the ground. And this play is almost intercepted. Now we're going to have a 3rd and 9. This is just all out slants, man. And Theo Johnson, I don't know how he catches this football, man.
It's a great catch.
I know. 3rd and 9. Just right. This is the next play after the one we just watched. And Theo Johnson is late getting his eyes there, and Jones delivered the football where it needed to be. And this almost
throw by Jones.
This was a good throw by Jones. This was almost a disaster later in the game when everyone sat on the slants and it was almost a pick. We'll see that, I think, a little bit later.
Almost got intercepted on that one.
But good job by Theo to secure this. He's been coming along the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes. I'm really excited about his development, to be honest.
All right. So now we're going to have, this is just a Wan'Dale Robinson does a good job getting open. Again, look at the alignment. This is something the Giants have experienced with a little bit more recently, putting Wan'Dale Robinson right next to Malik Neighbors, somewhat like a stack. We know the Giants love using their stacks. This is a stack. It's condensed. You're going to have Malik Neighbors release inside, draw the attention. This is the second time we've seen this. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to find the soft spot in the zone, and it's exactly what happens. Good job by Daniel Jones to process that 2nd and 9 play.
Yeah, this was a great play by the Giants. Great play by Daniel Jones. These were the type of plays you were hoping that Jones could make all game, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times against a secondary this bad.
And this is somewhat of what I was referring to earlier with Greg Van Roten. You can see Greg Van Roten, look, he has a 4-eye. No, that's a 4-tech. So he has somebody directly over top of him, but he knows the Giants have that half slide. So John Michael Schmitz is going to open towards his side. So he knows JMS is there. He trusts JMS. They played together long enough at this point. I think JMS is coming along enough to where you could trust him, but he doesn't trust Evan Neal right now. So Evan Neal loses high side. It's a good move by Jadeveon Clowney. You can see how Jadeveon Clowney contacts the elbow and just turns Evan Neal. Very savvy move by Jadeveon Clowney. But watch Greg Van Roten. Greg Van Roten stabs, eyes go directly on Jadeveon Clowney. Evan Neal gets beat. He gets up there and saves the day.
Oh, nice. That was a good example of what you were talking about before.
It's exactly. Yeah, this is the play that I was referencing. There was another play that was somewhat similar, but this is the best representation of that play.
Savvy play by Van Roten. Wow.
Absolutely. And
great throw by Jones, too.
Yeah, Wan'Dale almost dropped it. Could you imagine? Oh, that would have been devastating.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have this dig route to Malik Neighbors.
Oof. Almost gets killed on this one. Yeah.
I know. The ball just comes out so heavy. Like Daniel Jones throws such a heavy ball. You know, like there's no touch, there's no grace on it. It's just like pew, on a line. It's just a missile. But it gets there, and you're supposed to catch it. If it gets there, it's a good play design to defeat the cover 3 when you have a defensive back who's playing outside leverage. You just
I
run.
hate to see him get undercut like that, though.
Same here.
Oof.
But it's basically like a scissors concept now. It's more of a dig than a post, but the number 2 receiver, Jalin Hyatt, runs that deep corner, removes the middle of the field closed safety. Malik Neighbors has all that space.
I think it's a similar concept to the one that Russell Wilson hit George Pickens on, that game-winning throw. But instead of going to this route, he went to what would have been the Hyatt route. But I might be wrong.
The Calvin Alston play?
Maybe I'm misremembering it. I thought it was the Pickens one at the end of the game where he hit that corner.
Yeah. That was a deep corner. I don't know if they ran a post, but I mean, this is a common concept.
Yeah. We don't throw that corner, though. We know we're not attempting that corner ever, which is also frustrating to never attempt that corner route.
It's very true.
Because Hyatt created good separation there. That was a good route by Hyatt.
It was.
This was such a good catch by Theo. The concentration to catch it after it almost gets undercut and intercepted.
I know. And this was right after Chuba Hubbard fumbled because Andrew Phillips stripped him and fell on him a little bit awkwardly. So you got to put yourself in the position. It's 17-14, about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Giants are like, we're in prime spot right now to either tie to almost at worst, tie the game or take the lead after playing like shit for most of the game. And then the first play after it, Daniel Jones almost throws a pick to Josie Jewell, and somehow Theo Johnson comes down with it.
He tips it too, but Theo Johnson a great concentration to make this catch.
Dude, Jewell I remember watching Jewell at Iowa, and maybe I'm like biased because I liked him at Iowa. And I remember him being the unfortunate soul who was tasked to man cover Saquon Barkley in like 2017. And I'm like, this guy's screwed. He held his own kind of, but Saquon, he's, as we know, he's a good football player. But yeah, that's oof. He takes that aggressive step, Jewell. He steps with the run aspect of it. So I see what Jones is saying.
He fooled Jones a bunch. He fooled Jones twice in this game because I also rewatching that interception that he throws a couple plays later. Jewell did a great job there. He looks like he's pressuring the A gap and then just bails right toward Tracy. So like he got Jones a couple times.
That's an athletic play by Jewell. Like watch his hips and watch how low he gets and how he changes direction so quickly. That's professional shit right there.
He's a good linebacker.
Yeah. And now here it is, just a couple plays later, it's a 3rd and 7. You have man coverage. It's predetermined before the snap. You have a pressure look. You want the football out of your hands very quickly. And it seems like Josie Jewell is going to be the player on Tyrone Tracy Jr. Josie Jewell is on that hash. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is about 2 yards outside the hash. You have the beat. You take it. You throw it. Unfortunately, the throw was just a little bit to the inside, and it ends up getting wrestled away from Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Now I'll say this about this play, Nick. So obviously you guys saw who just watched. Josie Jewell did a great job. He looked like he was blitzing and he bailed out. So this play was dead, even if it was thrown in front of Tracy and not so far behind him, and he caught it. Right. And you can blame Tracy too for not catching the ball. I get it. Look at how he has to catch this ball. Look at where he is. Like, it's just crazy when he put 2 hands on it, but it's 2 hands behind him. And the TV is like right there. The linebacker's like right there. Like, come on, guys. Like, it's not easy to catch a pass like this when you're going full speed the other way. Right. Like, we have to understand this. But to me, Nick, one thing I would say is, I wish the Giants, and I know we don't have any kind of like authority or we don't see a lot of these like checks from the wide receiver and the quarterback, but I wish either one of two things happened. I wish either one, Daniel Jones and Malik were at a point where they could recognize what this looks like pre-snap and understand that from Jones' standpoint that, if I have Neighbors one-on-one, I have a good route that we trust in the red zone that he can win here with that kind of leverage from the corner and then throw to Neighbors, right? So I don't know if it's that route. It doesn't seem like it makes much sense because you have Theo kind of running into that space where the slant's going to be, which is also odd. But I wish one of two things happened. Either that, he has the authority with the receiver, or 2, with Tracy, instead of trying to run him to the flat and have him beat Jewell to the flat, have him run an arrow route because you got Jewell's all of his all of his momentum going that way, right? All of his momentum running to try to catch up with Tracy. Put your foot in the ground, run an arrow route, and you may have an easy touchdown right there and an easier throw for the quarterback too, who struggles with ball placement when throwing outside the numbers, but maybe can kind of throw an easy arrow route right over the middle. So I just kind of wish one of those two things happened. To me, this was the most difficult option for the Giants.
It's difficult to have those options, though, when you don't have enough players to block. And it was an obvious blitz, and it's only a 5-man protection. So the football needs to come out very fast. And this was the predetermined read to make based on the pre-snap leverage. I think Jewell did a great job. you could have called a different play. You could have had 5-6 man protection and not have so many players out and a route. That's something the Giants could have done. I wish they did, because if you got man coverage across the board and you were able to block up and you gave Jones maybe a second and a half with a one-on-one matchup, JC Horn versus Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors does a good job setting Horn up to the outside and then breaking to the inside. Maybe you could have scored a touchdown on that, but it's tough, man, because how many guys have been unblocked? Carolina just sent 6 here?
Yeah, the ball has to get out fast no matter what. I just think if he puts his foot in the ground and runs an arrow route, you can anticipate it and just throw it into that space. Or with Neighbors, you can throw a fade, you can throw that in breaker. There's different things that I don't think require that much time. I mean, you're going to get hit. That's how it is, right?
This is why you dial up the pressure, right? Like this is why Avero,
like Eli with to Plax when they ran cover 0, right? Like Eli got the ball out fast. He knew what it was. To me, that's a requirement for the position. I don't know.
All right, what's next?
It is what it is at this point, right?
I mean, it is. You're not wrong. It's just, you need to get the football out of your hands. You
need to get it out, right? Yeah.
That was his best option. If you're not going to have another person block, or if you're not going to keep Tyrone Tracy in there. I would have loved to see more Malik Neighbors. I want him to throw in the end zone. I don't want these throws in the flat. Of course not.
On 3rd and 7, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want that either. It's just like Jones is not good. Like, that's well established. We've talked about it ad nauseum to this point. There are other reasons why the Giants suck, though. And I think Dable could also do a better job situationally with some of his play calling and even putting his not good quarterback into maybe a slightly better position to have success. And as I brought up at the top of the show, I think we need to get Malik Neighbors more involved. And that's odd to say, since Malik Neighbors has how many freaking targets? Does he lead in targets?
Well, to be fair, there was Malik Neighbors before the concussion and after the concussion. He hasn't been as involved post-concussion. So I think those raw stats are...
He's still getting like 9 targets a game, though. He's still getting a lot of... I mean, what do you have in this one? 8, 9? And
you're right.
Like 11 still is. Weeks ago.
It's like shit targets, but he's getting them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. They got to get him better targets.
This is a rough one too. By Jones, man, just completely clean pocket. Giants hold up wonderfully. He steps up into a beautiful pocket. Wan'Dale Robinson does a good job winning on his route, and he just puts it in the dirt.
Oh God,
it's just terrible, man.
What is this? It's crazy that this is a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I know.
We've seen multiple reps on this film where he had fully clean pockets, hitched into a throw, and either airmailed it or left it shorted it.
And the Giants did a good job, or maybe not a good job because they didn't really connect on a lot, but they tried to create explosive plays with the deep post from one side and then a deep over. Some people call it like a Yankee concept, similar to that, or this deep curl, which Wan'Dale runs. And Wan'Dale does a great job leaning into JC Horn right here. Because you can see he wins to the inside, gets inside. Horn does a good job restricting space. Wan'Dale does the flipper, man. He puts his outside shoulder directly into the chest of JC Horn, presses vertical, gets JC Horn to go vertical, and then breaks it off back towards the quarterback and runs towards the quarterback. And Daniel Jones puts it into the dirt.
That's a great route by Wan'Dale. I love that you pointed that out. Also, another example of something we've been discussing a lot. A lot of good pockets in this game, right? Like, we've gone over a bunch of clips here. The pass protection looks pretty good all game.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. And this is Evan Neal again, getting a little bit of help from Theo. I love that we're going over a lot of these. As you saw before, it wasn't always like this. There was times when Evan Neal was on by himself, but he did a good job. Thankfully, Theo just throws Jadeveon Clowney at Evan Neal, and Evan Neal just stays in front. And then who's right there to help him?
There he is, GVR. You're right. This was a great game plan by the Giants to give Evan Neal this much, in his first game back, ease him in.
And you got to realize one of the reasons why they were able to do that. You need an effective center to take Greg Van Roten's position, right? The center needs to be able to handle that transition to allow Greg Van Roten to help. So it's just competency that is allowing the Giants to account for their weak link, for a lack of a better term. And when is the last time we've ever said competency in the Giants offensive line, especially when Andrew Thomas isn't out there?
That's what I'm thinking, man. You want to know another reason why this throw is short. It's you saw it on that end zone angle. It's the footwork, man. This quarterback's footwork is just really sloppy, and it's been sloppy and bad forever. I don't know how it hasn't improved in 6 years. It feels to me like this footwork has got almost worse in 6 years. That to me maybe is on Dable, maybe on Tierney. I don't know. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's on the actual player, right? Like, we always seem to blame coaches for things like this. So maybe the player is to blame. And I always think that's underrated among fans sometimes when it comes to when they don't improve. Like, sometimes it's just the player can't take to the coaching. And that may be the case here, but the footwork is just awful at times.
It's not good. And then you have this
one. My God.
Yeah, so this is going to be a double curl to the
I
boundary
mean, there's
side.
nothing open on this play. Let's be honest about it. This one, and not honest, but let's make that clear. I don't want to, but it's just the footwork is just crazy.
Yeah, it's a 3-by-1 set. You have Theo Johnson as a backside one. He's going to run basically a dig route. JC Horn is in solid coverage, but then you have middle hook defenders in that area. They're trying to use Malik Neighbors as the number 3, again, to distract those middle hooks to create space for Theo Johnson on the backside. And then you just have basically 2 wasted routes at the top with just 2 curls that are covered up pretty well by Carolina. And Daniel Jones thought that the middle hook defenders would react more aggressively to Malik Neighbors on the drag. They did not. They followed his eyes and almost came away with an interception.
That was the second time we saw an example of that, of Jones not reading the middle hook defender and almost throwing an interception because of it. Look at that footwork, man.
Yeah. And this is a 3rd and 9 too. On this play, probably would have been best if Daniel Jones just ran.
I know. I was thinking that same thing. There was nothing open. Just run for it.
Yeah, it's tough. He's trying to make a play.
I don't really know where he's going with this. Is that I guess he's trying to hit Theo, but the ball play, I don't know.
Well, he's definitely trying to hit Theo. I just don't know if he thought Theo was going to stop, which also is like, maybe he didn't want Theo to continue the route into the middle hook, but JC Horn is in way too good position to do that.
I don't think he read the middle hook at all, because we've seen so many examples of him not reading the middle hook.
But if he didn't read the middle hook, then I would, again, I'm not sure, but I would imagine he would have put the football more towards the middle of the field and not.
No, you would think that, and I think that's fair, but we've already put a bunch of examples on tape of him missing ball placement from clean pockets. So I can't guarantee that he would put the ball where he wants it to be when we've seen all these misses from a ball placement standpoint from clean pockets.
Absolutely.
We can't give him that benefit of the doubt. It's not fair.
No, we can't. We could just try to acknowledge context and, also acknowledge that we're working with a lot of conjecture at the moment.
Sure.
And here we have Jalin Hyatt. I love this play. This is a 9-yard curl route. It's less than a minute to go. It's 1st and 10. And you're going to have Jalin Hyatt just eat into the cushion, come back, and nothing too spectacular about that play, but it's how he attacks the catch point. That's what I really appreciate. He runs back and gives Daniel Jones more of a window. It's like when somebody's trying to close the window and you're like, no, I want that window open. And you just kind of like use your strength to prop that shit open. That's what Jalin Hyatt does here, because if he doesn't run back towards this football, this is going to get knocked away and it's going to be a PBU. So the little things like this about a wide receiver. Now, he body catches this, but I love receivers who extend towards the football, who attack the football, because it just mitigates risk. It limits the space between you and the quarterback, and it also negates a good break from the defensive back, right? It gives the defensive back less time to make a play on the football. Hyatt doesn't necessarily do that here with his hands, but he runs back to the catch point, allowing Daniel Jones to complete this pass for 9 yards.
I like that. I like that breakdown. I think it's a good example of that.
And Jones, he gets back. Jermaine Luminor again. This is like his 3rd game in a row where it's not really great. It's not bad. It's not, he's not a hindrance to the offense, but it's below average. Below average.
We're not watching 74 anymore.
No,
we're not 74.
78. Yeah. 78. I was going to say, Great Van Nurten's right there.
We're still watching him.
All right. And here's that play I was referencing before. It's the last play we have. 2nd and 1. It's a slant that's almost picked off. And then the Giants run all slants against this cover 2 defense. And you could see that middle hook to the top of the screen does not go with Theo Johnson at all. He reads the eyes of Daniel Jones, who was going to Malik Neighbors, and he tries to jump it. And thankfully, Malik Neighbors attacks the football too, because this was almost picked.
You could see as the game wore on that the Panthers defenders were really starting to get really in tune with what Jones does. And it was starting to get really scary. There were like 3 near interceptions.
And look at it. And Jones's eyes, they just scan right to it. He sets, he throws. That defender is not fooled. They already ran the same exact play. Luckily, it wasn't picked. It didn't really matter, though. If it was picked, it would have just been 3 interceptions near the red zone, and the Giants end up losing anyways. But yeah, those are all the offensive plays. Again, Dan, I think there's still a lot of positives to glean from this.
Me too.
Giants offense and
pass protection, the run blocking, Tyrone Tracy, Jalin Hyatt, Malik Neighbors,
Evan Neal.
I didn't even show this play. You can throw this up because this went real quick if you want to, just because this was a fun play that I liked. It's just, to me, a good example of what Neighbors, just a glimpse of some of the stuff we saw at LSU from a post-catch standpoint that we've really been limited to seeing so far with the Giants. But, he gets the ball here in a really tight space, sandwiched between 2 defenders here late, and is able to just turn this into another 4 or 5 yards after the catch. These are some of the things we're going to see as we move forward with Neighbors. But, yeah, he looked good to me. Hodgins looked good on the few plays he had. Really, everyone on offense, I thought, Alt looked good in this game, except for the quarterback, which is why, I make the point in this game more than the other. They lost because of the quarterback. I think it's very obvious and clear to anyone who watches the tape, and it will be clear to the Giants when they watch the tape and the coaches. And that's why they'll have to bench this guy. They have to bench him after a game like this because the teammates won't accept him coming back.
The video quality of what you just cut up looks like something from the 90s. When like you see,
I don't know what happened.
Like when you see like Gen Xers, like the generation above us, when they have videos of them in high school, and you're like, holy shit, that quality is terrible. And they all have like just weird stuff. That's what that video looked like.
I don't know what happened with that.
Look at this move by Malik Neighbors. I'm like, no one can see shit.
I blame. You know what? I should have got the other angle of it. And I blame Adobe Premiere for that one, I guess, or myself.
I think it's the computer. I don't think it's Adobe. Adobe's good software.
No, Adobe is good.
I'm a Final Cut guy personally.
I'll blame the computer. I'll blame my own self if I need to. Let's get into some superlatives here, Nick. Unheralded player on tape for you.
Yeah, I went with Theo Johnson. I think there's a lot of people you can go with, but I've been very hard on Theo Johnson since the start of the season, and I stand by that. The fact that he was struggling and the Giants were insisting on putting him out there, and it looks like it's starting to pay off a little bit. I still want to see more of 82. I still want to see a little bit more of Daniel Bellinger because I know he is somebody who has earned some playing time based on the film that we've watched over the last 2 seasons. But Theo Johnson had a good game, so I'm going to go with him.
I'm going with Evan Neal for this one. He comes back in. Not a lot was expected of him. Most people thought he'd be just as awful. He'd fail like he has in hilariously stupid ways that go viral on Twitter. And he didn't have any big fail moments. He had some really good moments. The play you broke down earlier, that where he took Clowney to the ground, like that was just a really phenomenal individual play by him. That was like, you put that on. What?
It's adaptive, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like from just the processing standpoint and the physical standpoint, that was like a high level rep in pass protection for him. In addition to everything he brought in the run game. So Evan Neal gets it for me. Best throw on film.
I went with the Wan'Dale Robinson play, the 2nd and 9 with 13:40 left in quarter 4. And it ended up at the top of the screen. If you were watching it on YouTube, Wan'Dale Robinson caught it on a little like deep curl, and then he evaded a couple people, and it just came out on time. And that's something I'm looking for at this point.
Yeah, I was looking through. I saw that you put that. I was trying to think of something else. I don't think there's anything else that can really challenge that throw. I think it was probably easily their best throw of the game from what you said. Good timing, good ball placement, good velocity, and nothing else was really close. I mean, I guess you can say the dig to Neighbors or Hyatt, but I mean, that wasn't. It's just a dig route. But yeah, a best player overall on tape.
I'm with John Michael Schmitz, man. I think it's my first time going with JMS as the best overall player. I thought he had a good game, man. I thought he blocked well in the run. He was fine in pass protection as well. It didn't seem like he was too challenged in pass protection, and he was helping out Greg Van Roten and John Runyon a little bit. But yeah, as a run blocker, I think he was one of the reasons why the Giants were so successful with some of the base blocks that he threw. So I went with JMS.
I'm glad to see JMS get one of these. Like it's nice that we just drafted him at 55 overall. That's high capital to use on a center, man. That's really high capital. I'm glad he finally got one. We need that type of moment for him.
And if he could just continue doing this, that's perfectly fine. He just understands his positioning, right? Like we don't need a center who's just going to bury it. Like he's not Frank Ragnow. He's never going to be Frank Ragnow. We shouldn't expect him to be Frank Ragnow. If he could just be a player who understands how to use his leverage to his advantage and position himself optimally to maximize cutback lanes or to position himself optimally on the front side of plays, that's all I need. And as long as he's working well with the guards that are playing next to him, that is all I need.
I'm with you on that. I gave it to Tyrone Tracy, who I just thought was unbelievable in this game. Some of the vision, some of the cuts, the power, the agility, the processing, some of the pass protection, some of the plays he made in pass protection. He's a big body and he's getting better in pass protection. Obviously, he had 2 mistakes. I refer to it as one. I'll give him 2. The fumble is bad. It's a mistake. To me, the interception, I know everyone, we have different opinion on this. Not me and you, Nick. I know me and most people. I just don't necessarily blame a player as much when they're running full speed right and a ball comes behind them and they have to go like this and then there's contact and they have to somehow make this catch when it should just be there in front of you in the direction you're moving. That's what I consider. If he had been moving in that direction, the ball got out on time in front of him and he dropped that, I'm going to say that's a big major mistake. But if it's behind him in a horrific ball placement on an easy routine throw, then I'm just not going to blame him for that. So one mistake for me and then a lot of other great stuff. So he's my player of the game for sure.
I wanted to, but I couldn't.
JMS had a good game. Good enough
fumble game. And also, like, you're not wrong with everything you just said, But again, man, football, it's a sport where you rely on your teammates, and that's much more on Daniel Jones. But you don't want a linebacker to wrestle a football away from you, even if it is thrown to the inside. And again, it's not something I want to blame him for. I don't think that's like the way to approach this, but it's just like, I wish you just found a way to knock it down. But again, this is the New York Giants. What happened with the football? It seemed like the football hit Josie Jewell in the tit and got stuck to the back of Tyrone Tracy Jr.
That's what it looked like to me, right? It didn't really look like he ever really got it in his hands.
No. He turned like this, and then it did seem like the ball just wedged between the two, and Josie Jewell just grabbed his boob, and he had a football just sitting there, and he was like, "Oh, let me just."
And one guy is trying to get the ball going this way, Josie Jewell. The other guy's trying to get the ball going that way. So you guys can make the decision. And I know what you're saying. It's still football when you touch it.
Well, again, like a fumble, I don't want to like knock him.
The fumble's fine. Yeah, you can't fumble the ball. That's a big mistake for sure. And that,
but you're right. He had a phenomenal game though.
Yeah, besides the fumble and the drop or whatever, the interception. Okay, player we expect to see more from on tape.
I mean, I just put Daniel Jones, but I think that's the last time we're going to see him anyways. And I've said that before though, so this isn't my first time. But yeah, I'm going to go with DJ.
No, but it's fair. He is the player we expect to see more from. He was the worst player by far on the offense. And the reason you can expect to see more, because some people might be like, well, why were you expecting any more from him? We know what he is because he was playing the Carolina Panthers defense. This was the worst ranked defense, and the gap between 32 and 31 was a massive gap. So this was just an unbelievably bad defense. And he mustered 193 passing, and it was like 135 until that final drive where they played off coverage and he was completing 50% of his passes. Like, it's unbelievable stuff.
It's not good. It's not good, Dan. I'll say this though. Yes, we know it's Daniel. For the people, it's Daniel Jones. How can you put him? It's like, this was a bad game for Daniel Jones.
Right.
We know who Daniel Jones is. I understand the ceiling. I know who I've watched so much. Daniel Jones football.
Way too much Daniel Jones.
I have watched every game of Daniel Jones multiple times on the All 22 on the broadcast. All right. This is my job. I've watched so much of this quarterback. I understand his limitations, but this was a uniquely bad game for him because at the baseline of Daniel Jones being an acceptable quarterback, I need him to be able to deliver passes somewhat accurately and on time. And he did not do that at all in this game.
In addition to all the other stuff.
Right. Yeah. The lack of ceiling and all that, that's always there. Right.
Yeah. And the turnovers in the red zone. It's as bad as it gets. I really think it was the worst game adjusted opponent he's ever played. Unfortunately for him, it could be his last game that he's ever played with the Giants, at least. We'll see what he does this offseason. I think he's got options. He could go to Carolina or Cleveland and maybe have a chance to start at some point, or he could just be like, Purdy's backup. Like, I don't think that's such a bad move for him either. Just go like backup Purdy or one of those like established starters.
Dude, Purdy made a throw on Sunday, and I think I texted you.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, Daniel Jones has never made a throw like that.
You did text me that. You texted me immediately. You said Daniel Jones never made a throw like that. And I was like, you're damn right. He's never made a throw like that.
It was so nice.
We're even close to a throw like that. So he can be the backup to that, right? He'll get in.
Maybe.
He'll grind some yards out. You can do some like quarterback option with him. You know what somebody said to me today? And I think it's really true. The best option for him would be to go to a coordinator who can make him like a Taysom Hill type. I think I mentioned actually to you. No, I do believe that he's different than Hill. He's not as powerful and he's not as good a runner, but he's a better thrower than Hill. He's a much better thrower than Hill. And he could catch the ball if you need him to in space. Like if you want to use him like that, like he should honestly be like a Taysom Hill type. That's his best. I do believe that's his best option.
I don't. I think he can be a fine backup quarterback.
Yeah, or a backup. But this way, if you're a Taysom Hill type, you get to play still, right? Like and he wants to play. He believes in himself. You can tell. He was pissed at the Giants when they had Hard Knocks. And he was mad earlier in the year at Dable. It's never my fault. It's blah blah blah. He believes he's a good player. So Taysom Hill. Man. Yeah, he's a good competitor. I'm happy for him. But like Taysom Hill gives him a gives him a chance to play. So I don't think you should poo-poo it, but he'll probably end up just being a normal.
I mean, I don't think he's nearly as thick. He's not going to be nearly as physical as a blocker as Taysom Hill. I don't think he's nearly as adroit as Taysom Hill. Like the one time we got to see him try, though, he made a one-handed catch against Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He could make some
an anomaly. He's an athlete.
He's a basketball player. Powerful. He's a basketball player. He has good lateral agility, a great three cone, and he's a better thrower than Taysom.
Dude, he looks. And again, he's recovered from a torn ACL. You mentioned this weeks ago. And when I was watching this game, I was like, oh, man, this game is probably the best representation of it. He just looks slower. He doesn't look as nearly as athletic as he did prior to the injury.
No. And that's maybe it's hesitation, maybe it's just a year removed from the ACL. But if you sign him for that Taysom Hill role, you can kind of get him 1 year removed from the ACL. I believe in this role, dude. Some creative coordinator should be able to figure this out with him because he's athletic guy, still somewhat athletic guy, and he's powerful.
Justin Fields, somebody who's a little bit bigger and might be able to like command. Like Daniel Jones is big, but he's like slender. Like Fields is a much better athlete than Daniel Jones. If you want a reclamation project as a quarterback to redo the Taysom Hill role that is already controversial enough, I think it would be Fields.
I like the Taysom Hill role, dude. I think coordinators can be a little more creative with these athletes and like do use more like multi-quarter type guys who can throw the ball on the field at once and like do weird things like laterals. And I just like the idea of using.
That was Dave Gettleman's thought process behind selecting Kadarius Toney in 2021. He played high school quarterback.
Yeah, man, I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Jones. It'll be interesting to see like if he goes to Cleveland or Carolina, his chance to play, or if he just takes the backup role and accepts who he is, which I don't think, in my opinion, he's ever really done. And no offense, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like he's a competitor. He believes in himself, and that's fine. But like at some point, you got to look yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm 22-44 as a starting quarterback. I haven't thrown 3 touchdown passes in 57 games. The next highest person on that list is Deshaun Watson at 14 games. It's been 57 for Daniel Jones. I mean, we're talking about some of just the worst production ever. You have to at some point accept that maybe this is a little bit on you. I don't know. But it is what it is at this point for us. We're finally almost done with this nightmare. I think we might be done. But let's give some pass blocking and run blocking grades and let's get out of here. Pass blocking 1 through 10.
I had a nice, strong 8.6.
Nice.
Blocking.
Nice.
It was good pass blocking.
It really was. The pass blocking was good all game, dude. I had it at 8-4, but this was one of our better pass blocking games. Bad matchup, easy matchup, but still.
Yeah. But
pass
also, man, like you got to take into account you have Evan Neal with all of that
all
of that goes into Evan Neal returning to the starting lineup. Mm-hmm. That's something the Giants fans have been talking about for how long. And with that, Jermaine Illuminor is shifting from the right side to the left side, and it wasn't a disaster at all.
Yeah, I think there was one play I blame the O-line for, that 3rd and 5 where there was no one open and they did get beat pretty early and quickly. And outside of that, the pass protection held up almost every single open play.
There were a couple other like deeper shots that Jones took
some late pressures. Yeah.
And this again with Jones, man, stood in the pocket, delivered the ball a little bit inaccurately, but delivered the ball and just took an absolute shot, and that's why some Giant fans love Daniel Jones, is because he has that kind of toughness. And he does have that toughness, but there's a lot more to playing quarterback.
Toughness gets us to 22-44 through his starts as a Giant, and 5 of 6 lost seasons. Not giving me much anymore. Run blocking 1 through 10.
8.2.
Yeah, I had it a little bit lower. I had it at 7.6. There were some amazing moments as we went over. So maybe I'm a little low. I should have been.
No, I don't think you are though, because
there were some misses in the run game. Yeah.
We went over a lot of the positive plays when we watched the film on them. There were some plays where it's like, oh, Tyrone Tracy. Oh, wait, nope, Jadeveon Clowney's right there.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. Exactly. There was one late with that with Tracy where actually I thought Tracy should have tried to win the outside, but he kind of cut it back inside. It was a 2-yard loss toward the end of the game, and Clowney did a good job of kind of containing him. So is what it is. Clowney's a good run defender on the left edge. That's part of it as well. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. This was a fun show to do somehow. I hope that you guys can enjoy it as well. I know that not as many people are listening these days or watching, and that's just the reality that Nick and I have to live in. But we still did really well on the reaction show. So I guess that's what's going to come down to, Nick. And like I said, I'm going to be putting in the work starting this week to try to reach out to, and I know Nick is as well. We're going to try to reach out to and find draft analysts that will come on early with us, not just wait until March, February. We're going to try to get them on starting, maybe end of this month and then later in December as well. See as many as we can get, because if we can do position previews for the draft, early stuff to look at, things like that. We were excited about the reaction to the side podcast last week where we touched on the draft in addition to roster building. So we're going to try to do more of that. There's just all we can do at this point. I know you guys don't really care as much about the games, but it's just the reality. It's like I said yesterday, Nick, it's apathy. Like, we're really apathetic toward this team when we watch them. And it's a sad place to be, to not have emotion when watching games. And I used to have all these great conversations with my brother and my dad after games and just midweek about the team and where we're headed and what we're looking like, who played well in what game, what it means for the next game. Those conversations are all gone. Like, we don't talk about this team anymore. There's nothing to talk about, really. We find stuff to talk about because we're looking toward the future. And the diehards who are sticking with us, thank you so much. And we appreciate your fervor for this team. But they've sucked the life out of us during the week for the actual games that are happening in
They're
season.
succubus.
Yeah, for for in-season games. We still have so many games to go, dude. That's the crazy part. Like, oh man, it is what it is, though. This is our
I know
life.
it's depressing, but it could be
It's
worse.
depressing. It could be worse. Yeah, I mean, we still have to take a step back and put into perspective that we're talking about our favorite football team with a bunch of like-minded people who really enjoy the content and we love interacting with. So there's still always going to be that. If you take a step back and you can look at things from a positive lens.
And obviously from a real world perspective, that is 100% accurate, but it's also one of these things that when the Giants get good,
oh, this is going to be so fun. This is going to be
it's
so
going to be
good.
the best, man. And we are going to reflect on these times, be like, I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We put our dues in. And now I can tell you, hey, remember that game against Carolina Panthers? What happened on 3rd and 9 on this play? And like, we have all that knowledge base and you know,
good way to look at it.
Yeah. So it's going to turn around eventually. We thought it would be a little bit quicker, but it has not been. It's been about a decade now, but eventually it will turn around and it's going.
Well, at least for us, it's only been 5 years of doing the podcast because if we did this from the start of the downfall, it would have been even more depressing.
Oh,
so
man, I had some takes about McAdoo though, man. If you, no, I had some takes. I thought he was in well over his head.
Oh, he was in so well over his head as a head coach. That was, that's probably the moment a lot of people point to as the downfall of the franchise when they ousted Coughlin. Coughlin didn't shake John Mara's hand on that final presser, just walked right by him. Obviously, that wasn't a good sign. And then they went to McAdoo with his oversized suit that was like 3 sizes too big for him in the biggest opportunity interview of his life.
And then what happened shortly after that? It was the Miami boat picture, man.
Yeah.
Miami boat picture. And it was just downhill. 2017 nightmare. You bench Eli Manning when he is about ready to set records for consecutive starts. And it's just a look of that. He finds out through not an organic means. And he's like tearing up in the, oh God, it's just a nightmare.
We've somehow evolved into this franchise, which I never ever as a kid thought we would be. We're essentially a Jets-like franchise right now. I just never thought this would happen to us. It never seemed plausible. It never seemed likely. It never seemed possible to me when I was a kid. It just didn't, because maybe I held the Maras to too high of an esteem, right? Because of Wellington. Wellington was an owner you wanted. That was the guy that you could get behind. And like, he was a big reason the Giants were a successful franchise. Because even just not including like the 07-11, they had 80s, 9 success in the 80s and 9s. They had some bad spells too, but they had multiple.
The 70s were tough.
Were really bad. My dad always tells me about that.
That led to George Young, though, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about Wellington Maris, like we talk about the New York Giants, obviously, but this dude was foundational in setting up the National Football League.
The salary cap.
He was one of the owners that made the NFL what it is today.
Collective bargaining.
I got you. But like, he was such a pivotal point for NFL history, Wellington Mara. Like all the owners of these very esteemed franchises, like the Rooneys with the Steelers and Wellington Mara, like those guys were so impactful for setting up what this game is right now that we all love, and expanding it and making it as big as it is. So, I mean, absolutely crucial guy. Now, we just need his son to put some things together. Tishes, you guys do your Hollywood thing, and you can come by and be like, why the hell aren't we winning? Like that's what I feel like Steve Tisch does. He goes off, he does his producing in Hollywood, and he comes back like, fire everybody.
It's not a good situation going on. All of which, in my opinion, can be solved immediately if they luck their way into like a Jaden Daniels type prospect or Lamar or all these great quarterbacks that teams have drafted. I really think that fixes so many problems, but we'll see if I'm right about that. If the Giants ever do that, or if they can get to that point. But for now, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Please hit like, please subscribe, please support the show, and have a great rest of your week.